So let's have a look at the subject homepage. In Brightspace, you'll find that the subject homepage is relatively consistent for both staff and for students, with a couple of exceptions. One of the most obvious ones is that staff looking at the subject homepage will see more objects inside the nav, so the navigation bar at the top, particularly the subject admin area on the top left-hand side. So opening that up would take you into a series of tools, etc., that help you to manage a subject. Students don't get access to subject admin. If we click on the actual title of the subject at the top, it's a shortcut which will always bring you back to the subject homepage. The Charles Sturt University logo in the top left-hand corner is a shortcut which will always return you to the Brightspace homepage. So both of those shortcuts are the beginning of your navigation on the subject homepage. Moving across to the right, we have an area that's called the minibar, and it starts with the waffle, and the waffle tool is a subject selector which will allow you to search for subjects, and if you've pinned them, which you can do in here, you'll be able to see them at the top of your list. So it's one of several ways of locating subjects that you're enrolled in and opening those subjects from a list. You'll see that list grow over time, obviously, unless you remove yourself from particular subject sites. Moving across to the right, in the minibar, we've got a messaging tool, which effectively is an email tool, and that will allow you to send communications from the subject. Now, it's a dynamic tool, which means that if you send emails using your subject-based messaging tool and students then reply to them, it recognizes who you are and your Outlook email address at CSU. Responses will go back to that mailbox. They don't come back to the subject site. More on the messaging tool elsewhere. We also have some subject updates, for example, if there have been changes made to the sites, etc. An activity happening, you'll be able to see those within the update alerts. And we also have a subscription alerts area for parts of the subject site that either staff or students have specifically subscribed to. So you'll notice that there are probably elements within the site such as discussion board threads, calendar events, etc., or announcement areas that you can choose to subscribe to, which would mean even if you haven't got notifications for those areas turned on by default, you would still receive a subscription alert. So if you're wanting to see that information, you can open up subscription alerts. And then moving across to the right, you've got your profile area, which will allow you to change the role that you're in currently in the system, using the student view, for example. You'll also be able to access your profile information and update that if you need to, and your notification settings. They're probably the more noticeable actions that you might choose to open this profile area for. Moving down, we've got the actual nav, and that will allow you to open, as a staff member, subject admin area, the learning materials for the subject underneath content, your communication objects, which will include in this nested menu, you'll find the Zoom tool, for example, launching the announcements tool, discussions, email groups, etc. Your assessment area, so either assignments, quizzes, or launching grade moderation. This is for staff, obviously. Then you've got the My Subject options, which start with the subject outline, the grade book, and then you'll find some other objects in there that might be of value to you. And then we come across to the resource area with access to Leganto on the library website, and then some general support, external support resources. So this is probably mostly student-facing in many respects, particularly the resource areas, supports, resources, etc. Scrolling down, the home page will consist of the banner for the subject with the subject name. Then we have a series of what are called widgets. Now, a widget is a tool link, so not the tool itself necessarily, but it will give you a condensed view of information within that tool and the ability to go to the full tool. So if I'm not making sense here, if we look at the announcement widget, for example, if I open this up and expand it, we can see a listing of the announcements in this condensed form along the right hand side, and I can dismiss individual announcements if I need to. But if I click on the actual drop-down menu, I can go to the full announcement tool from here. So the widget on the home page will let me do some of the functions of the full tool, but maybe not all of them. And it will give me a consolidated view of information from that tool on the home page. Each of the widgets allow you to both expand or collapse the widget, which means it will reset back to this smaller state where it's not using much of the real estate, and then you can choose to expand or collapse the widget if you need to. So if we look at the calendar widget, for example, it's not the full calendar. It shows me what's called a mini cal, so a condensed view of the current month. And I can see, for example, there's an event happening here on the 7th. And then underneath, I can open up that event and see exactly what it is. So this works the same for students. But if I'm not wanting to see these objects, calendar objects, they're taking up too much space and I don't want to look at them at the moment, I can collapse the widget. And you'll see that it resets back to that basic state. So collapsing and expanding is how the widgets work. And the other widgets that we have access to on the home page, apart from announcements and the calendar tool, we've got an activity feed widget, which will allow you to make persistent posts which stay on the home page. Students can't delete them. We've got a staff widget, which will show students in the subject who the convener, coordinator, and additional academics are associated with the subject. And if your profile has an image attached and other contact information, etc., that will all display to students within the staff widget. And then most of the real estate on the homepage is taken up by the My Topics widget. Again, that can be collapsed if you don't want that real estate being taken up on your homepage. But the My Topics widget is a way for students and staff, if they wanted to, but particularly for students, to jump directly to particular topics inside their learning materials, inside the content area. So you can open it in full from content here if you need to, or you can also jump directly to the topic and the last page that you were doing in that topic from within this widget. So you'll notice that there are some progression indicators inside each of these topic folder sort of thumbnails, if you will. So I've got the title, which will launch it, but underneath it also shows me how many of the pages or content items inside that topic folder I've actually accessed. So in this case, I haven't looked at any of them. So if I clicked on the title, it's going to launch from the first item inside. So these progression markers are for each individual user. So in my case, Lachlan the student has not accessed any of the items inside the welcome folder, any of the items inside the embedded tutored folder, etc. So the My Topics widget is for the individual user to be able to jump directly to content, learning material objects, or they can select the content item in the nav at the top. For staff, selecting content, that'll open up your files and folders view, where you can open up the actual topic folders and look at the pages in between. For students, however, clicking on the content item, and you'll notice that here in the student view, I don't see subject admin in the nav. Clicking on content will bring me to not the files and folders view that we have as staff members, but instead the actual content tool in Brightspace for students. And that allows students to see this visual view of the pages inside each of the topic folders. It's collapsible. I can open it up and see. We have two subfolders here. I can open that up and then see the individual pages inside the subfolders. So I can jump to any of those individual pages from the links here, or if I select Launch Lesson or Launch Topic at the top here, it will start at the beginning effectively. So we've got top level folder, the topic folder, then we've got subtopics or subfolders, if you will. And again, you can see that progression marker that's showing me how many of those I've completed or not done at this stage. So if I actually select to launch this subfolder, if you will, It'll then start opening the content, at which point I can open up my hamburger menu on the left, and it shows me a different type of progression indicator here on the left. So 0 out of 12. So that's a total of all of the items inside the two subfolders that sit inside this topic. So that's to give you a bit of a contrast between how the My Topics widget works on the home page for both staff and students. So there is a difference. So that's our subject homepage.